G'day guys, and welcome back to your English Aussie. Today we've got a great video for you guys with all the best buys, sells and holds for the best defenders, midfielders and forwards and goalkeepers for game week 26. Firstly, I just want to start with a big thank you. We have just managed to monetize the first stages of this YouTube channel. That will now open up the chance for super chats and giving thanks on videos in the comments. We will in the future be looking to bring some membership tiers to you guys, but not until we've really bedded down what the best things we can include for you are. I'm also looking to bring a sort of shop with selling merch from your favorite teams, so look out for that stuff in the future. And I just wanted to give a big thank you to everybody that contributed to that with subscriptions, likes and watching those videos. And please, if you haven't subscribed to the channel or liked the video, please give the like button a smash, subscribe to the channel, comment below if you do have any comments for your own teams. Of course, I will be getting back to everybody in the comment section. So let's kick off straight away with the best defenders. And in tier 1, we do have first up Gabriel and Julian Timber of Arsenal. At the moment, I think Arsenal just have the best fixture run over the next sort of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 game weeks from 26 all the way through to sort of 35. And Gabriel and Timber are obviously the most nailed players in that side. Although they haven't been keeping as many clean sheets as we would have liked, they did get one last week against Leicester, and Arsenal of course are a formidable defence. With the good fixture run coming up, I see these two options as the best options going forwards for your defensive lineup. Arsenal of course play in game week 29 as well, so they won't be blanking through to the end of the season. Next up in the tier 1 buys is Trent Alexander-Arnold and Ibrahima Konate of Liverpool. Of course, Liverpool with a double game week this week, and despite them blanking in game week 29, I think they have been the best defence, the most consistent defence this season, and most likely to keep the clean sheets. Trent, of course, has that ability for attacking returns, and although we have mentioned so far this season that I think he is not good value for money in that 7.4 million, however, a lot of the teams these days do have that sort of higher team value where you can afford to get Trent. So although he's not good value for money, he is still the best Liverpool option from an attacking perspective in that defence. And if you do have sort of a slightly lower team value and aren't able to stretch your budget to that, I think Ibrahima Konate is still a really nice option for that Liverpool defence at a little bit of a cheaper option. You can really hit that nice price point there. Moving into the tier 2 buy sections, and we do have two of the Bournemouth defenders who have a fantastic fixture run coming up in Milos Kerkez and Dean Hodgson at 5 million and 4.5 million. It's really nice to be getting into that Bournemouth team at the moment. Over the next sort of, again, like 8-9 game weeks, they do have some really nice fixtures coming up, and these two do also have some nice potential for attacking returns, which has been so important so far this season. Kerkez has really had no worries with getting up in support of the attack and playing in a lot of that higher wing-back role, and Hodgson has been a real threat from set pieces, of which Bournemouth have been one of the best teams in the Premier League from set pieces. Along with Arsenal, you can see with their sort of set piece coach that they have employed a lot of the same tactics that Arsenal do in those set pieces, and have had a few sort of trick plays in there as well. They've caused a lot of damage so far this season from set pieces. So I think these two could be really nice options with Bournemouth's nice fixture run coming up. Next up on the list is Mykolenko of Everton. And over the next sort of 4 fixtures, Everton have a nice run with Man United, Brentford, Wolves, West Ham. They then do start to have a few more difficult fixtures with Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, City and Chelsea over that next 5 period. But given they don't blank in game week 29 and Mykolenko is at that 4.4 million cheaper price point, he could be somebody that just slots in as a cheap defender option and then can be left as sort of a rotation for the rest of the season after you get through that game week 29 blank. Next up on the list is Robinson and Castagna, and although Fulham haven't quite kept that many clean sheets of late, They do have some nice fixtures over the next 3 game weeks before some more difficult fixtures. However, they do often have chances for attacking returns. Robinson obviously being the defender in the Premier League with the most assists so far this season. Fulham obviously being quite difficult to predict from a tactical standpoint of whether they're playing in that 4-2-3-1 formation or they're sort of playing 5 at the back. And Robinson has been employed in the left wing role as well as a sort of more orthodox fullback role so far this season. So that does give him more options from an attacking perspective as well. So for me, that's why he lays on this tier 2 list, as clean sheets have been so hard to predict this season and attacking returns are so valuable in that defensive space. Finally on the list, maybe the more controversial option, or one that people are not thinking about at this moment, is Ryan Aït-Nouri. Wolves has a really sensational run of fixtures at the moment, and they do probably become the best from maybe game week 28. But from that period going forwards, they have Everton, Southampton, West Ham, Ipswich, Tottenham, Man United, Leicester, playing sort of 4 of the bottom 5 teams over that period of time. And we can think back to the nice fixture swing Wolves had earlier in the season, where they were successful over that period of time playing against some of the lesser oppositions, and they have sort of struggled more lately when they've had to play sort of those better oppositions recently. I think Aït-Nouri could be a really nice option at 4.8 million as well, that could prove a differential to you guys' teams. In the sell section, we do have now Lewis Hall. I know this might be controversial, but I think it is time to get rid of Lewis Hall and those Newcastle picks. With Newcastle blanking in game week 29, this could be a perfect option to sell Lewis Hall to one of these other picks in the tier 1 and tier 2 section. For me, he's been a fantastic asset, but somebody that now I think it is time to move on from. Without playing in game week 29, also with a couple of difficult fixtures coming up with Nottingham Forest and Liverpool in the next 2 game weeks, I think Hall could be someone next on the chopping block. Next up is Daniel Munoz, and we do have the same sort of issue with him, is that he does blank in that game week 29, and although Palace do have some nice fixtures over the next 3 weeks, that perhaps you could look to hold him and then sell in that blank game week in 29. After that, Crystal Palace's fixtures aren't so good and do start to get a little bit worse going forwards to the end of the season. So for me, Daniel Munoz is someone that you potentially hold to 29, but then is somebody that I'd look to sell for that blank game week. Next up is Pedro Porro, and at 5.4 million, and I know still owned by many people, is just somebody that I don't think matches that price point. For me, the Tottenham defence has been really poor this season. They've really had a tough time keeping any clean sheets, conceding plenty of goals. Pedro Porro's attacking returns just hasn't been enough to justify that 5.4 million price point, and is a sell for me. Next up is Rico Lewis of Manchester City, and with Nunes playing a lot in that right back role, for me, the minutes risk for Lewis, along with Man City being quite poor, and defensively fragile still, is a reason for me to just not want to go for him. We do, however, in the hold section still have Joško Gvardiol, and for me that is because he has been allowed that sort of offensive freedom to be marauding and roaming up that left-hand side that he didn't have recently, sort of in the middle of the season, that he had at the beginning of the season, and that does mean that he is more of an attacking threat for Manchester City. And at the moment, Manchester City, after this Liverpool game and Tottenham game, they have a really nice string of fixtures all the way through to the end of the season, especially from a defensive perspective, that potentially they might be able to pick up a few clean sheets along the way. And if Gvardiol is getting into those attacking positions on that left-hand side, he's definitely someone that you could look at in the future as a really nice pick for those attacking and defensive returns. Next up on the hold list is the Nottingham Forest defence, and for me, although their fixtures are not very good coming up over the next few weeks with Newcastle, Arsenal and Man City in the next 3 weeks, they do just keep churning out results and are just such a defensively resilient side. And their fixtures do get better from game week 29 onwards. They don't blank in game week 29. So for me, if you do have these sort of players, they are just a hold through this difficult period for me, and things will get better from game week 29 forwards. They don't blank in game week 29, and that's so important for me going forwards. And now we will move on to the midfielders. Before we do that, just a shout out, please remember to subscribe to the channel, like this video if you're enjoying this content. Please help continue to grow this small channel. We're on about 1.1k subscribers plus at the moment, and we're looking to push on to 2k. Really appreciate all of you guys that watch these videos. It really helps if you watch through to the end, engage in comments if you've got questions, like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for those of you that have already, and let's continue on. In the midfielder section, in tier 1, we do have Mo Salah and Cole Palmer, to absolutely nobody's surprise. A little bit of conversation around Cole Palmer, as there has been some sort of comments around potentially selling him going forwards. However, I do think Chelsea's fixture run really pick up nicely, especially from an attacking perspective over the next few games. They've got Villa, Southampton and Leicester in the next 3, followed by Arsenal, and then Tottenham, Brentford and Ipswich, which from an attacking perspective is really nice fixtures. So 6 out of the next 7 fixtures are good attacking fixtures for Chelsea. Palmer is obviously their talisman, and he can go absolutely nuclear in a game week. So for me, he's definitely somebody that I look to hold on to and potentially have as a captaincy option in future game weeks upcoming. And first up on my tier 2 buy leads on from this nicely and might be a controversial pick. It is Christopher Nkunku of Chelsea. With Nicholas Jackson's injury sidelining him for the next 6 to 8 game weeks, Christopher Nkunku looks like Chelsea's lead man and number 9. With Gui also injured for Chelsea, he looks like he's going to start up front for the remaining weeks, and at 5.7 million, that could be a real steal in that Chelsea attack with some really nice fixtures coming up. They also won't be blanking in that game week 29 and for the rest of the season, so therefore he could be a nice set and forget in that sort of mid-price midfielder option if you're looking for someone around that price point. Next up on the list is Phil Foden of Man City. I think despite their defensive fragilities, Man City have really tactically changed things up from an offensive standpoint, having that Savio on that sort of moving him onto the sort of left-hand side, allowing Foden to be able to get into those half spaces in the middle, find his way inside the 18-yard box and pick up those pockets of space that he's been so effective in. I still think he's looking like a really nice option for City, and with their nice fixture run coming up, mostly from game week 27 onwards, all the way really through to the end of the season, I think Phil Foden could be a fantastic option if you're looking for a Man City midfielder. Next up on the list is Dango Ouattara and Justin Kluivert of Bournemouth. Bournemouth obviously have a fantastic fixture run from 26 all the way through to game week 33. They won't be blanking in 29, and Ouattara and Kluivert are just looking excellent picks at the moment. Ouattara having got a hat-trick in the previous week and scored another goal this week. He's playing in that number 9 role for Bournemouth. Enes Ünal is obviously out for the season, and Evan Nilsson with a fractured metatarsal will be out for a long period of time, perhaps until April. So it does look like Ouattara will have nailed down that number 9 spot. A midfielder playing up front at 5.1 million is really nice with Bournemouth's attacking presence at the moment. And obviously Justin Kluivert's just been in fantastic form and also is on penalties. And yes, that should be green ticks for both the fixtures for Ouattara and Kluivert, and probably a green tick for the form for Kluivert as well. Moving on, and another maybe controversial pick is Jarrod Bowen of West Ham. Although West Ham haven't been in the greatest form of late, I do really like the sort of more attacking movements and patterns of play that they are starting to find with Potter coming into that managerial team. Bowen's obviously come back from injury recently, and West Ham's fixtures aren't too bad after this week against Arsenal. They do have sort of intermittent, a few good games here and there, sometimes a few in a row, all the way through to the end of the season. So he really could be somebody that could be a differential pick and have the potential for some big hauls going forwards for the rest of the season, and is last in my tier 2 buy list. In tier 3, and someone who has moved out of my tier 2 and slid down, first up is Brian Mbeumo. I think for me, with the flexibility of Brentford with the 3-4-3 and the 3-5-2, sometimes Mbeumo does find himself isolated a little bit on that right-hand side, hasn't been able to get into the game as much for those sort of goal returns that we've seen in the past for him. And with Brentford's sort of really nice fixtures starting to get not as good going forwards, I do think Mbeumo is somebody that's just dropped down a little bit for me. He obviously is still on penalties. He is still a key part of that Brentford attack. Their sort of form has been dipping a little bit of late as well, before a nice win this week. So he's just moved down to a tier 3 for me, but I still think is a reasonable option, especially given that he's not blanking in 29. Next up on my list is Anthony Elanga and Morgan Gibbs-White of Nottingham Forest. And these guys are just so essential to that clinical Nottingham Forest counter-attack. Their fast forward progressions up the pitch, their progressive carries, progressive runs. These guys are at the centre of everything, and really are some nice cut price options if you're not looking at those sort of Bournemouth midfielders. I think the only problem for these guys is obviously the Forest fixture run over the next 3 games is not so fantastic, but sort of from game week 29 onwards, they do start to become some intriguing options to look at. Next up on the list, we do have Fernandes and Ahmad of Manchester United. And these guys are, with the sort of Manchester United reasonable fixtures over the next 4 or 5 weeks, looking like their best attacking options. Fernandes obviously on penalties, and Ahmad with now Rashford having moved to Villa, although looking at playing more minutes again in that inside forward role, which is where he's most likely to sort of pick up the goals for Manchester United. For me, they're probably not the greatest options on this list, just because Man United seem to be quite inconsistent from game week to game week, so it's really difficult to get an idea of sort of the form of these players and for them to give you consistent returns. So that would be my comments there. We do finally on the list have Jacob Murphy and Anthony Gordon of Newcastle. Although they are blanking in game week 29, after that they do have some really nice fixtures for them from 30 onwards. So if you are planning to free hit in 29 or not looking to manage your way through there, these 2 guys are still fantastic options. Newcastle are still a fantastic attack, and definitely players that I'd consider going forwards. Finally, on to the forward line. And in the tier 1 section, we do have still the main man for Newcastle, Alexander Isak, still in fantastic form. Newcastle in a fantastic attacking option. And if you do have him, even though there is a blank in 29, he'd be someone that I'd be looking to hold and bench in 29, along with a Mo Salah. Often you guys will have a lot of money caught up in the Isaks and Salahs, and so to sell those sort of players, if you then did look to buy them back later in the future, that would be difficult from a price perspective. So if you do own Isaks and Salahs, I'd look to sort of bench them in that game week 29 rather than sell and bring back into your side. Next up in the tier 1 buys is Cody Gakpo of Liverpool, and although he is a little bit of an injury doubt for Liverpool's game week this week, I think he's probably been the most consistent attacker in that Liverpool side over the previous weeks, and was probably one of the few that you can rely on for the consistent minutes at the moment. He's obviously been in fantastic form and has shown he can play in that central striker role as well as the left wing role for Liverpool over the previous game weeks. For me, even though Liverpool have that gap blank in game week 29, they do also have Southampton in game week 28, and it would be a really nice fixture to target for those Liverpool attackers and specifically for Cody Gakpo. So he's definitely at the top of my buy categories. And now next up, and he was very close to the tier 1 buy, I would say. Maybe again quite controversial to have this high up at the moment, hasn't been talked about lately. But Matheus Cunha of Wolves. Wolves have just such a sensational fixture run coming up, really all the way through to the end of the season, but especially from game week 29 where they take on Southampton. Matheus Cunha will be Wolves' lead man. And we just saw how well he did at the beginning of the season when Wolves did have this great fixture run, and maybe it petered out over the last few games. As we discussed, they did have some more difficult games over the last sort of 4 or 5 game weeks. And his returns have petered out. but with this nice run of fixtures now, this could be the perfect time to jump back into Cunha and get on those attacking returns that he was providing to a lot of other managers earlier in the season. He could prove a really nice differential going forwards. Next up is the GOAT of FPL. It is Chris Wood. He just keeps on scoring despite the statistics, despite the XG, despite the XA, despite the fixtures. Chris Wood is the GOAT. If you don't have him, still a great buy. For me, you can't think anything else. You can't sell anything else about this man. He's been fantastic, in fantastic form for a fantastic team. Chris Wood is up there on my tier 2 buys. Next up, again, maybe a little bit controversial, is Marmoush of Manchester City, just coming off the back of a hat-trick against Newcastle. He is looking in fine form for City. I think City have really changed their attacking tactical play up so well recently, and Marmoush has been a really nice addition into that forward line, often getting up there as a second striker for Haaland, looking to run in behind the defence, really causing trouble for defenders. He's been an excellent option, and with Man City's really nice fixture run coming up from game week 27 really against Tottenham all the way through to 36, 37, 38, he could be a really nice differential pick for that Man City attack. Next up, we've got Yohan Wissa. He hasn't quite got the returns that we would have liked for owners over the last few weeks, but I think he's still been picking up great positions in a Brentford attack that are still potent, although not as potent over the last few weeks. He did also score 2 goals this week, both chalked out for offside or for an infringement in the build-up. So a little bit unlucky for Wissa owners this week. I do still think he is a nice pick, and I do still think they have a few nice fixtures coming up over at least the next 4 game weeks. After that is Ollie Watkins, and I know that he does blank in game week 29, but this is more for those people that don't have a problem with the blanking in 29. Perhaps you're free hitting, perhaps you don't have any sort of Liverpool, Newcastle, Aston Villa players in your team. Ollie Watkins is still a nice pick over the next sort of 5, 6, 7 game weeks, up to game week 32, where Villa's fixtures are not so nice up until the end of the season. He's obviously the main man up front for them. There is some reservation as to what the rotations will be with Rashford and Malen at the moment. So he is at the bottom of the tier 2, but definitely someone to consider going forwards. In the sell category, we do now have Nicholas Jackson. He's obviously injured now for the next sort of 6 to 8 weeks for Chelsea. It is time to sell him. At 7.7 million, you can use those funds better elsewhere. We do also have Evan Nilsson. He's out with a fractured metatarsal at the moment and is a sell. Next up on the list is João Pedro, and he's in this sell category now, given that he has been being rotated in the last 2 games against Brighton in the FA Cup. Against Chelsea in the FA Cup and against Chelsea in the league. He hasn't been in the greatest form for Brighton and has now become a minutes risk being rotated in their side of late, and they have picked up 2 good results with him coming off the bench. So for me, it is time to sell João Pedro. And finally, another man that has been an unfortunate injury blow for Everton has been Ndiaye. He has also got injured for them and will be out for a couple of weeks, I think. And unfortunately for me, is now a sell. And definitely, unfortunately for Everton, as he is a key attacking threat for them at the moment. In the hold section, we do have Raul Jimenez of Fulham. Fulham do still have a good few fixtures for the next sort of 4 game weeks. They also don't blank in game week 29, but from game week 30 onwards, I would probably look to move him out of the team, as their fixtures do take a turn for the worse for them. Moving on, we do have a goalkeeper section for you guys. You have been asking for this. And just a final shout out for you guys, if you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment below with any questions on your team or thoughts on the video below. I will get back to all of those people. Thank you so much for watching this far. I really appreciate you guys watching to the end of the video, and engaging always helps this channel, and I appreciate all of you guys. Now, first up on the goalkeeper tier 1 buy list is Alisson of Liverpool. I think Liverpool have been the best sort of defence this season, along with Nottingham Forest. most likely to keep a clean sheet. Obviously the best team in the Premier League at the moment, and Alisson probably the best keeper out there. So for me, he could be a set and forget for the rest of the season. Liverpool have some nice fixtures coming up as well, and I think Alisson could be really good to get you through to the end of the season. Next up on the list is Pickford of Everton, a guy who just manages to keep picking up save points no matter what happens in the games, whether he manages to keep a clean sheet or not. Pickford's been frequently picking up points, and Everton do have that defensive resilience, which does allow them to occasionally pick up the clean sheets despite their opposition. Finally, I do have David Raya of Arsenal, and although Arsenal haven't quite always got the defensive returns that we've been looking for such a great team, they do have a really nice fixture run now over the next sort of 9-10 game weeks. And if they do show that sort of title mentality that they're going to need to keep these defensive clean sheets. And they do have a strong defence, and I would look at David Raya as a nice option to set and forget through to the end of the season. Into the tier 2 buy category, and we do have Kepa Arrizabalaga of Bournemouth, and that is because of the Bournemouth nice fixture run over the next sort of 8-9 game weeks. Although they haven't been the best at keeping clean sheets, with this nice fixture run, he could be someone nice at sort of a cut price option that you're looking to go for at this time. We do also have Areola at West Ham. It does look like he has taken Lucas Fabianski's starting role in that side now under Graham Potter. He potentially could be someone that you have in as your sort of backup goalkeeper if you do have an Alisson who might be blanking in game week 29. Areola could be perhaps a rotation goalkeeper. He does have a nice fixture against Everton in game week 29, and at 4.2 million might be nice at a budget goalkeeper option. And finally on this list we do have Sells of Nottingham Forest. He's on here just because Nottingham Forest, despite the fixtures, do have such a resilient, strong defensive line. Sells has been fantastic. He's been making great saves for them. And they do start to pick up having some nice fixtures from sort of game week 29 onwards. They don't blank in 29, and their fixtures get a little bit better from there. Finally, I just want to say a big thank you to you guys who've watched the video this far. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please like this video if you have. Leave your comments below if you've got any thoughts on the video, advice going forwards, comments on your own teams. I do reply to every comment below. We have now unlocked the ability to give thanks and super chats after videos or in the live streams. I will be bringing out in the future sort of memberships once I'm able to put together some really good, useful stuff for you to include in there. And I am looking also to put out sort of a Shopify shop or something like that, where we will be selling some merch for your favourite teams. So if you do have any things that you have been looking for, please let us know, and we are looking to sort of create some various nice things for you guys going forwards. Thank you again to those of you that have allowed us to get this far and allowed this channel to be monetized. I appreciate every single one of you guys that watched these videos. Good luck to everybody for game week 26 and for the rest of game week 25. This has been your English Aussie. Have a great week, guys, and I will catch you soon.